Hey everyone, my name is Chloe, and today I'm here to do my second half of June wrap-up. So if you have not seen one of these videos, what I do is I talk about the stats for the second half of the month and then just go through the books in the order that I read them for the most part. But I will separate by middle grade, young adult, and adult books. So if you are interested in any specific age range, check down below. I will list the timestamps, and that's it. So the second June in general, we have had, I read with my daughters. So I have 3 daughters, and we read a lot of middle grade together. We are constantly doing read alouds. We typically read like around nap time and around bedtime, but every day we do some reading. And my girls are almost always into chapter books, but in June they've kind of had a resurgence of picture books, so there's not quite as much to talk about, and that it has been really, really fun. And I did a couple of things in our house to celebrate the first day of summer, halfway to Christmas, all those kind of things where I was bringing in picture books from the library. So that kind of distracted us. And then as for myself, I did a couple of vlogs this month, or maybe just one. I did a new release vlog where I read a bunch of different new releases. And so I had a couple things that I read for that. And kind of, I have found that lately doing more specific vlogs where I'm reading not on my shelf is actually not as motivating for me. It used to be the opposite, that like reading specific books for a vlog would be more motivating, but right now I'm so motivated by taking books off my shelf. So it was not a slumpy second half of the month by any means, but that's just kind of where our reading was. So let's just get into the stats. So in the second half of June, I read 18 books. That's 4,313 pages, which is 288 pages per day. The average length was 240 pages per book. So as you see, this is a really good mix of middle grade and stuff that I'm reading independently. That's 1.2 books per day. And I read 10 novels and 8 chapter books. So 10 for myself pretty much, and 8 chapter books with them. I read 9 adult, 1 young adult, and 8 middle grade. 6 were from my shelf and 12 were from somewhere else. And so I really want that to be more even Stevens. I say it every month, but I'm fine with my girls like reading the middle grade books all from the library. So maybe that's not even a goal to have. I don't know. I would say more than half of what I read was maybe off my shelf. So that's good. I read 7 from the library, 6 from Libby, 3 just off my shelf, and 2 from NetGalley. And that is where I primarily read it. So like the ones from Libby, sometimes they were on my shelf and I would go back and forth between the physical and the e-copy or the audio copy or whatever it was. But that's where I primarily got them. So I read 10 physically and 8 on audio. Again, that's the way I read it the most dominantly. 7 were new release and 11 were backlist. So as always, I love my backlist books and that'll never change. But this one was definitely, this second half of the month was definitely new release heavy because of that new release vlog. As far as genre goes, I read 7 contemporary, 4 romance, 3 women's fiction, 2 sci-fi fantasy, 1 mystery thriller, and 1 magical realism. So sci-fi fantasy, I should say with like an asterisk, because I am not really a sci-fi or fantasy person, but they're ones that my daughters and I read. So it's a middle grade sci-fi fantasy. As far as star ratings go, I had 1 2.5 star, 4 3 stars, 6 3.5 stars, 5 4 stars, and 2 4.5. So no DNFs this month, or this second half of the month, and also no 5 stars. So the average was 3.58, which is pretty average. It's just kind of, I would recommend it, middle of the road. I'm enjoying my reading, but nothing exceptional. And I'm really needing that, like something exceptional. I feel like I need an exceptional book or two to kind of propel me right now, because I'm not feeling slumpy, but I'm like on the verge of a slump. So let's get into the book. So starting with middle grade, first we read Mayhem and the Wild Garden. So this is number 13 in the Mayhem series, and this is one that we adore. We just love this series. We pre-order these. So this one came out sometime in the beginning, or like right, maybe June 13th or something. I can't remember when it came out. We read it a couple days after it came out. So this one, Mia, premise of the series is that Mia is just a regular girl, and then she finds out that her parents are superheroes, and so is she. And so she has to go to this school called the Pits, and it is where she discovers, like, we don't know what is her superpower. So she's trying to discover what her superpower is, and she's got friends who are superheroes. It's so fun. And in this one, her and her friends are all given a seed. They're not magical. They're just a seed of some kind, and they're supposed to plant it and see what plants they get. So everybody else gets normal plants, like flowers or whatever, normal plants. Mia gets this one that's like taking over things and talking and doing all these crazy things. So this is almost like, this is what I wanted from Harry Potter. You guys know I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan. Now these are not the same as Harry Potter, but like, they go to this magical school. Like, it's the fun, magical part on a definitely toned down level. So this is really fun. We love this series. Next is a series that we started called the Critter Club. And these are so pretty. Like, they're textured and they're glittery. When you can see them, the paperbacks are, the hardbacks are not. But this is about a group of 4 friends, I think, and they start the Critter Club. So this one is, she's Amy and the Missing Puppy. They're looking for a puppy. They find it, and then somebody that they kind of thought was like a grouchy curmudgeon actually turns out to be really sweet, and she creates this animal rescue and asks the girls to run it, and so they start to run it. And this is definitely just a setup book. And then All About Ellie, this one is about another one of the girls in the Critter Club. Her name is Ellie. She's trying out for the school play, and that consumes her, and she doesn't show up for her responsibilities. She doesn't like her friends. That's all. She only talks about herself. All that kind of stuff is going on. Great conversation starter about, like, it's okay to be passionate about things. It's great to be excited about things, but it's not all about you all the time. And so while these books are about the Critter Club, they are more about this group of 4 friends. And you guys know, like, these are the kinds of books where I started my women's fiction love, because these are books that we can relate to. They feel very contemporary, very real life. Like, this could be happening with our neighbors next door. And my daughters love these books, and so I just am really excited. They are really tending to, like, fall into the genres that I really like. Now, that's a chicken and an egg, but these are fun stories. Next is Princess Posey. So Princess Posey is a little girl who she is she goes into the 1st grade at the beginning of the series, and this is books number 3 and 4, The Dog Next Door and Monster Stew. And she is just a little bit of a shyer kid, kind of. She has neighbor boys who pick on her, and she's got a baby brother, whatever. She has this tutu that she loves to wear, and when she wears it, she's Princess Posey, and she gets to be brave, and she gets to be all these different things that Posey herself kind of struggles to embody. And so in The Dog Next Door, there is a dog that moves in next door, and she's a little bit afraid of dogs, and she figures out how to be friends with the dog and realizes that it's not so scary. And then in this one, The Monster Stew, this is a great, you guys know I love my holiday books. I love my, like, themed books. This is a Halloween story, and her teacher is making monster stew. And she's really freaked out by that. She's kind of freaked out by Halloween in general, and she's always trick-or-treated with a flashlight. And now this year, people are saying flashlights are for babies, and so she's trying to overcome those fears. And this one I felt like left a little bit to be desired. These are, I think, like 96 pages or something, and they really could use that. Like, I think the next bump is like 128 pages for these middle grade books, and I really feel like they could use the extra bump because it went there. I really like The Dog Next Door. I felt like that really explained the fear of dogs and kind of how to overcome that. And I've got one child who is kind of scared of dogs, so this was really great. But this one, I felt like she kind of just, like, she did have an accommodation to that helps her figure out how to overcome the fear of Halloween. But yeah, I feel like it could have just gone there just a little bit more. But overall, we're really enjoying this series. And for sensitive kids, highly anxious kids, these are really great. Next is a series that we've been in is Isadora Moon. This is Isadora Moon Has a Birthday. This is listed, like, I think this says it's number 4, but I think it's listed as number 3 on Goodreads. It doesn't really matter. These you do not have to do in order, but Isadora Moon is half fairy, half vampire. So her dad's a vampire, her mom's a fairy, and in almost every book, she has to kind of figure out her place in the world. Does she belong with the vampires? Does she belong with the fairies? In the first book, she decides to go to human school because she doesn't quite fit in with the vampires and she doesn't quite fit in with the fairies. So she decides to go to human school and try to fit in with human kids. And so now she has a birthday, and her mom and dad are planning it because she's young, maybe somewhere in that first grade range. And so she's having a birthday. Her parents are planning it. So her dad kind of wants a vampire party. Her mom kind of wants a fairy party, and she wants like a human party. And so they do a human party, but with their own twists. And so it's really like, instead of getting a bounce house, her mom pulls down clouds and they bounce on clouds. And it's really fun. These are cute books, and I would highly recommend. We really jumped around series this month, which is great because normally my girls like to pick one and binge it, and we've really been jumping around, and I like that better. Piper Morgan in Charge. So Piper Morgan, her mom is a kind of temp worker. She takes different jobs all over different industries, and in the first one she was in a circus, and so Piper got to go along and be a part of the circus. And now this one, her mom gets a job in a school, and Piper gets to help in the school office. These are really fun, kind of quirky, and they talk a lot about making mistakes and how that's okay, and just finding your place with friends, all that kind of stuff. These are great. And then the last middle grade is Lola Levine Is Not Mean. So we picked up a Lola Levine book a while ago, I don't know, and it was somewhere middle of the series. And you don't need to read any of these in order, but we are completionists and we really like to. And so this one is about this little girl named Lola Levine. She is, I can't remember, her family is Hispanic in some way, and Jewish and Hispanic. And so there's a lot of Spanish terms thrown in here that I really liked, and a lot of like family history that I really like. And anyway, she is very, very competitive, and she loves soccer. And so she is playing soccer, and she accidentally kicks a kid, and everybody starts calling her mean. The thing I did not like about this book is that, like, the principal tells her she can't play competitive sports at recess, and, like, really, I don't think that would be what would happen. She accidentally kicked the kid. It's not like she was nasty about it. She was remorseful. Like, it was silly. The premise of this book is kind of silly, but the series is okay. This is probably not one that we will finish or read a lot of, because there's a lot of talk of, like, who likes who and kind of stuff like that. And they're in the second grade, I think. And I mean, I know that happens. I'm not oblivious to that, but like my kids, I just don't feel like we need to necessarily read like about crushes and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't want a romance to be the focus of a second grade story. So that's just my thoughts on that. So those are the middle grade. Now I read one young adult, and this is In Real Life by Jessica Love. So I buddy read this with my sweet, sweet friend Glinda. And that's really fun, but we had almost nothing to talk about this because I think she gave it a 2-star. I gave it a 3-star. This is about young kids. I can't remember even their names. Nick and Hannah. Their older siblings met at a concert one time, and then somehow Nick and Hannah got connected, and they have been virtual friends forever. They are the first person they talk to in the morning, first person they talk to at night. They're just best friends. They share everything together, and maybe there's a little bit more, maybe not, but they have been doing this for 4 years and have never met until one night Hannah's like, okay, let's go. So he lives 4 hours away in Las Vegas. She lives in California, and she has kind of broken off meetings before, and so it's balls kind of in her court. So she takes her sister and her best friend, it's spring break, goes to Vegas. Now Hannah reads pretty young, and I think she's like 16 or 17, so she is young, but she reads even younger, and there's a lot of immaturity, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of lack of communication that I feel like I can forgive in this story because they are 16 years old, and at 16 you're figuring out all of like communication, relationships, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like this book was good for today's young people. As a 30-something reading this, this isn't necessarily the world I grew up in. Like, I grew up at the beginning of, like, instant messenger and stuff, and, I mean, we just didn't communicate that way really at all. So, it was kind of hard to relate to, kind of cheesy, kind of over the top in, like, the cringe factor and the angst factor, but it was good enough. So, I would give it like a low 3 stars, but if you have a today teen or tween, this might be a good one. So now let's get into the adult books. So I read, first and foremost, The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, because I had The True Love Experiment on my shelf, and I know they're companions, but I wanted to read them first, especially, and I do feel like this companion series is one that kind of does benefit from reading them in order, because in this book, we find out about a technology in which your DNA matches, determines your level of compatibility with somebody else via your DNA. So you're a gold match or a silver match or whatever. It gives you a percentage of compatibility based on your DNA. So in this one, it is single mom Jessica and Jess and River. So he is the founder of this technology. She's a single mom, whatever. They find out that they are like the perfect match, and they're reluctant to date, I don't even remember a lot about this. I just remember it was 3 stars, didn't really care, didn't feel a lot of chemistry, just whatever. So that was a big bummer. Then I'll just go ahead and say that I read The True Love Experiment, and this one had a more interesting plot line to me, because this is about a reality TV show in which so our main guy, he is Connor, and he's a single dad, and he makes documentaries, but his job is like, hey, we're gonna actually switch, you're gonna do this reality show, it's kind of Bachelorette-esque, and we're gonna see, America's gonna vote people off and stuff, and we're gonna see at the end, did they pick the best genetic match based on this soulmate equation technology. So we'll see, did they find her most perfect, most compatible match? And so he's like, okay, I don't really want to do that, but I do want to keep the job because I want to be close to my daughter and that kind of stuff. And so he says he's going to do it, and he wants Fizzy, which is the best friend from this book, to be the bachelorette, if you will. And so I think that is interesting. I like these books that are coming out lately that are kind of behind the scenes of these reality shows. And yet this one is completely just a will they, won't they, Fizzy and Connor. The show is very, very much a backdrop. It is very secondary. Like, you don't get very much of the show at all. I talk more about this in my new release vlog, and it was too steamy for me. And I think between these 2 books, I have just kind of decided that Christina Lauren is not the author duo for me. I loved Love in Other Words, but I think that's kind of a one-hit wonder for me, and that I am just not the target audience. So another 3 star. Next is another new release, and it is The Mother at Number 5 by Jill Childs, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. This is a thriller about a woman infiltrating a married woman's life, and it's a thriller that you've read 1,000 times before. It was entertaining to read at the time, but I don't feel like it offers anything new. So I forget our main characters, but a woman and her husband and kids are on vacation at a beach. She decides to go out for the night and have like a girls' night with this woman that she meets on vacation. And the woman is like, hey, tell me your biggest secrets, I'll tell you mine, kind of thing. So they exchange secrets, and then they get home the next week or whatever, and that woman is enrolling her daughter in the same school, and she is infiltrating their life and kind of holding those secrets over her head. You know, she thought she would never see her again, and there she is holding those secrets over her head, kind of making her life rough. And we don't know the motivations and all that until the end. Like I said, it's entertaining to read, but it's nothing that I haven't read before, so 3.5 stars. Next is Maybe Next Time by Seska Major, and this one is a Groundhog's Day trope, sort of. It's a Groundhog's Day trope about this woman, Emma. She is kind of a workaholic. She's got a husband and kids and all that kind of stuff. She's just juggling so many things, as we all are. And she's just kind of absent everywhere because she's just juggling so many things. And at the end of this day, her husband dies. And then she wakes up the next day and it's the same day again. And she relives this day over and over and over and over for months. And I feel like that it's hard with the Groundhog's Day trope to give us enough detail that we feel like we're there with the characters and we feel like we're emotionally involved and we're in it, versus like not enough. I don't know. It's a fine balance between too much detail and not enough detail, because then like this one, it was months and months and months, and we didn't get to see every day, of course, and it kind of became something you're numb to. And so then the whole point of it is kind of examining her role in things, other people's roles in things, giving grace to others. There's a lot of conversation around that, and I think this would be a really good book club book. But that being said, it got a little redundant, as the Groundhog's Day trope kind of can, and it was just not the best thing ever, but it was good enough. I gave it 3.5 stars. If it sounds intriguing to you, pick it up. If it doesn't, then maybe skip it. Next is Get Lucky by Catherine Center. So this one is one of her super backlist, one of her first books, and I was meeting Catherine Center. I met her sometime here at the end of the month, at the end of June, and so I wanted to read that, Get Lucky, and then Hello Stranger, her newest, are the only two that I hadn't read. So Get Lucky started so good. Like the first part was 5 stars for me. It is about a woman who's kind of down on her luck, and then she moves in with her sister and her sister's husband, and they are struggling to conceive, so she decides to become a surrogate for them. Great premise, loved it, loved the setup, but then we got so distracted, and like it was like the time jumps, the characters kind of stream of consciousness, like the lack of dialogue, it just ended up being like so unfocused and so like just unfocused is the word that I can use for it. And I was annoyed by the main character. I didn't really care about the story. So I gave it 3 stars, maybe 3.5, because it was still her great writing style, but you can tell it was one of her early ones and just not the best. But then I read Hello Stranger and I loved it. So I gave it 4.5 stars. And this is about a woman who, she is a portrait artist, and she has a medical condition in which all of a sudden she collapses and wakes up and she is face blind. So she's a portrait artist, mind you. So she, like, her job is drawing people's faces and bodies and things, and from now she can only see, like, when she sees a face, she just sees like pixels, she cannot put a face together, can't recognize anybody, all of that. And I thought this book, like, maybe it was just the right book at the right time, because it was like just so good. And there's a little bit of a love triangle, but there's only one guy that she's clearly interested in, clearly pursuing in any way, shape, or form. The other guy is just in a couple scenes there in the background. I would not call it a love triangle, but the connections that come are really interesting. Not anything I saw coming, but I also needed like something mindless, and it was just really cute. And Catherine Center definitely did a lot of research on face blindness. It's something that I want to dive into a rabbit hole about, because there's 2 kinds and there's a lot to it. But it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. So 4.5 stars on that. So we've got kind of a bummer Catherine Center and then a great Catherine Center. Next, I read Just the Two of Us by Jo Wild. So this is one that's been sitting on my shelf for a while, and this was written mid-pandemic, like summer of 2020, I think. And I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think so. And this is a marriage in trouble about 2 older people. They've got grown children. She actually has divorce papers that she's bringing home, and then the pandemic hits and they are stuck home together. All 3 of their kids decide to go other places. One's a scientist in London doing work. The other one is married and stuff with her own family, and then the other one decides to go with his girlfriend and quarantine with her. And so it's just the 2 of them, and they are kind of figuring out, is this marriage over or is there something to save? And I enjoyed this for what it is. You definitely have to go in knowing this was written during the pandemic. It is totally a pandemic thing, and if you're in the right headspace for that, then I thought it was good for what it is. It's a little bit repetitive, because so was being stuck at home day in, day out, all that kind of stuff. So 3.5 stars on this. Next is, let's see, Happy Place by Emily Henry, you guys. And this is one that I was just so underwhelmed by this. So this is about Wynn and Harriet, and they were engaged, and they're a part of this friend group that they met in college, and they're now like nearing 30s or in their early 30s, I don't know. And Wynn and Harriet are engaged, and every summer this friend group meets back up at one of their beach homes, and they spend a week or whatever together. So this year, Wynn and Harriet are broken up. They did not tell anybody that they broke up, but they broke up. So now they are spending this summer, and something happens right at the beginning where they're like, okay, we've got to fake it because we can't tell them that we're not together, etc. So they fake it. And then we get timelines of then and now to see kind of how their relationship started, how it fell apart, and now is there anything worth salvaging? So that was fine. I loved People We Meet on Vacation, and I have heard a lot of comparison between the two, and I can definitely see that. This one just was nowhere near as good. I was not emotionally invested in the same way. I did like the friendship dynamic and the friendship group, and how there's really that discussion of friendship in your 30s and how like your best friends, like you used to know every detail of everybody's lives because you were involved in everything, and now you're adults with careers and families and whatever else, and you lose some of that connection, some of that time, some of that knowing the day in and day out, but that doesn't make the friendship any less genuine or any less intense. So I really liked that kind of discussion and portrayal of friendships, but the romance was just meh for me. Just meh. I thought it was all right. I mean, it was fine. I don't know. Like the end was great, but like the middle was meh. So maybe 3.5 stars. I feel like I need to really lower my expectations. For Emily Henry and myself, I loved People We Meet on Vacation, but everything else has been kind of 3.5 stars. Meh. And then last is Save What's Left by Elizabeth Castellano. So a lot of these books are in my new release vlog, so I will link that down below so you can go watch more of my thoughts kind of in real time. But this is about an older lady who she's, I think, divorced or else on the brink of divorce, married in trouble, I don't know. I think has adult children. I just read this one last, and I'm still like struggling to remember a lot of details, but decides to buy this beach house and gets involved in this little beach community, and she's wanting this like peaceful, serene, whatever, but she gets herself involved in the neighborhood antics, and it's a small group of people that are just up in arms about this new condo or whatever going in next to her house, and so they're trying to prevent that from happening. It's a lot of hijinks. She's really like, I heard another reviewer call her a Karen, and she definitely is a Karen, and there's not really any character growth. This gets really like repetitive and kind of just boring, and I didn't love our main character by any means, so I gave this one 2.5 stars and wouldn't really recommend it. So that is everything that I read in the second half of June. So I've got some really good stuff coming up in July. I'm doing the Roll Your Next Read from Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand and Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library. I'm also doing Catch Up-a-thon from Krista from Krista's Books and Jams, and from Amy's Books Life. So 2 good kind of readathon reading prompts. I'll link my July TBR down below. I've got really good stuff coming. So that is it. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts are, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.